Have you ever wondered why your life feels stuck in emptiness, drifting without direction, even losing the most valuable things you once had? It could all come from something that seems harmless, but in reality, it's the silent fire burning you down day by day. Lust. In today's video, we will expose the shocking truth about how lust destroys your life, stripping away your freedom, your focus, and even your future. Watch until the end, because this truth could change your life starting today. Lust takes away your self-control in ways that are often subtle at first, but devastating over time. At the heart of every human being lies the capacity for discipline, the ability to guide desires and instincts toward goals that build a meaningful life. Yet when lust takes hold, that capacity begins to erode. You might not notice it immediately. It starts with small compromises, little indulgences that feel harmless. But soon, those small moments accumulate into patterns, and before you realize it, your choices are no longer guided by your higher self, but dictated by your impulses. This is the first and most insidious way lust destroys your life, by stripping you of your autonomy, one decision at a time. When you lose self-control, it isn't just about physical desire. It seeps into every aspect of your being. Think about the energy you waste when you constantly battle your own urges. The mind, instead of being sharp and focused, becomes clouded with obsessive thoughts. You plan your days not around productive tasks or long-term ambitions, but around how to satisfy cravings. Slowly, the capacity to delay gratification, a core principle of success, slips away. It becomes harder to say no, harder to resist temptations, harder to keep promises to yourself. And once that inner trust is broken, you feel powerless, almost like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. There is also a psychological toll. Every time you give in, you might experience a fleeting moment of satisfaction, but it is quickly followed by regret, shame, or even self-loathing. That cycle of indulgence and regret reinforces the belief that you cannot control yourself. The brain adapts to this pattern, wiring itself to expect short-term pleasure rather than long-term fulfillment. Over time, your willpower weakens like a muscle that has not been used. What was once an occasional slip becomes a routine, and that routine eventually solidifies into an identity. This is just who I am. In reality, it is not who you are. It is who lust has trained you to become. Consider the ripple effects. A lack of self-control does not remain confined to one area of life. If lust controls your evenings, it affects your mornings. If your nights are spent chasing gratification, your days are spent recovering from fatigue, guilt, or distraction. Work performance declines, studies suffer, ambitions stall. You may find it difficult to follow through with commitments, whether at work, school, or in relationships. People begin to notice, not necessarily because they know the source of your struggles, but because your reliability diminishes. You show up late, you forget tasks, you cut corners. What you might dismiss as personal weakness starts to shape how the world perceives you. Lust also has a way of clouding judgment. Imagine being faced with a major decision, perhaps choosing a career path, considering an investment, or even deciding whether to commit to a long-term partner. If your mind is constantly distracted by desire, can you truly weigh options with clarity? Lust narrows your vision, keeping you fixated on immediate pleasure rather than long-term consequences. You might choose relationships for physical attraction rather than compatibility, jobs for quick money rather than growth, or friendships that enable indulgence rather than elevate you. These choices, when compounded over years, steer your life off course. One of the most painful consequences of losing self-control to lust is the loss of respect, both self-respect and the respect of others. Deep down, you know when you are not living up to your potential. You know when you are letting your impulses dictate your actions. That knowledge gnaws at you, creating a quiet frustration that never fully disappears. You begin to doubt yourself. If you cannot control something as basic as desire, how can you handle bigger responsibilities? Others too can sense this struggle. They may not know the details, but they can feel the inconsistency, the lack of discipline. Respect is hard to gain and easy to lose, and lust accelerates that loss. But perhaps the most tragic element of all is how normalized it can become. In modern society, lust is marketed, celebrated, and monetized. Everywhere you turn, advertisements, movies, social media, you are bombarded with triggers. When you give in repeatedly, it begins to feel normal. Friends may even encourage it, treating indulgence as harmless fun. Yet beneath that surface-level acceptance, you are still losing self-control. The tragedy is not just in the damage caused, but in the blindness to that damage. You convince yourself that you are fine, even as your discipline withers away. The question then becomes, why does lust have such power over self-control? The answer lies in the brain's reward system. Lust activates powerful dopamine pathways, the same ones triggered by addictive substances like drugs or alcohol. Each indulgence provides a dopamine spike, reinforcing the behavior. Over time, your brain craves that spike more often, lowering your tolerance for normal, everyday joys. Activities that once brought satisfaction, reading, creating, exercising, feel dull compared to the intense rush of desire. This is not just weakness, it is neurological conditioning. Yet while the brain adapts to lust, it also has the capacity to rewire. Just as repeated indulgence strengthens the grip of lust, repeated discipline can weaken it. If you reflect honestly, you may notice how lust-driven decisions contrast with moments of true self-control. Think back to a time when you resisted temptation and stayed focused on your goals. Perhaps you studied for an exam instead of going out, saved money instead of spending impulsively, or worked out instead of staying in bed. The satisfaction you felt afterward was different, deeper, more enduring. That kind of self-control builds confidence, whereas giving in to lust erodes it. Every indulgence whispers, "You are weak." Every act of discipline declares, "You are strong." Lust takes away your self-control not because you lack the capacity to resist, but because it convinces you that resistance is impossible. The truth is, self-control is always within reach. It requires awareness, intentional effort, and a willingness to endure discomfort in the moment for the sake of freedom in the future. When you begin to reclaim your choices, even in small ways, you start to rebuild the muscle of discipline. And once that muscle grows stronger, lust's grip weakens. The tragedy of lust is that it blinds you to your own power. But the hope is this: every moment of choice is an opportunity to take back control. You are not a slave to impulses unless you choose to be. The path to freedom begins with recognizing how lust steals your self-control and then making the decision, day by day, to reclaim it. It destroys relationships in ways that often remain invisible until the damage is irreversible. At its core, every relationship is built on trust, respect, and emotional connection. When lust dominates your thoughts and actions, those foundations begin to crack. It doesn't happen all at once. In fact, it usually starts with subtle shifts in priorities. You become more focused on physical gratification than on genuine companionship. You may still say the right words and play the part of a loving partner, but deep down, your attention has shifted. And when your attention shifts, your partner feels it, even if they cannot fully articulate why. One of the most destructive consequences of lust is how it promotes selfishness. Real love is about giving, about putting another person's needs alongside or even above your own. Lust, on the other hand, is about taking. It views the other person not as a complete human being with thoughts, dreams, and vulnerabilities, but as a means to an end. Even in committed relationships, when lust takes precedence, your partner can start to feel objectified, valued for their body rather than their soul. Over time, this reduces intimacy to mere physicality, leaving the emotional bond to wither. Infidelity is another brutal byproduct of lust. When the hunger for constant stimulation grows, many people begin seeking it outside their committed relationship. What starts as harmless flirting can escalate into secrecy, lies, and eventually betrayal. The short-term thrill may seem exciting, but the aftermath is devastating. Trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. Your partner may forgive, but they will never forget. Every look, every absence, every late-night phone call could reignite suspicion. Even if the relationship survives technically, its soul has been wounded. Even without outright betrayal, lust can corrode relationships through neglect. When you are fixated on fulfilling your desires, whether through media, fantasies, or other outlets, you stop investing energy into your partner. Conversations become shallow, quality time diminishes, and emotional intimacy fades. Your partner begins to feel lonely even when you are physically present. They may start questioning their worth, wondering if they are enough to hold your attention. That sense of inadequacy creates emotional distance, and before long, the two of you live parallel lives rather than a shared one. Lust also breeds comparison. In a world where digital images are available at the swipe of a finger, it's easy to compare your partner to unrealistic standards. You may not say it aloud, but in your mind you begin to measure them against others. This silent judgment erodes appreciation. Instead of cherishing what you have, you focus on what you think you lack. Your partner, sensing your dissatisfaction, may feel pressured to change in ways that compromise their authenticity. Resentment grows on both sides. You resent them for not fulfilling your ideal, and they resent you for making them feel unworthy. The long-term impact on families cannot be ignored either. When lust breaks down the relationship between partners, it often shatters the stability of the home. Children raised in such environments absorb the chaos. They witness the arguments, the silence, or the absence, and they internalize those experiences. They grow up with distorted views of love, intimacy, and trust. What was once a private struggle between two adults ripples outward, shaping the emotional lives of the next generation. Another hidden danger is how lust diminishes communication. Healthy relationships thrive on open dialogue, sharing dreams, fears, and everyday experiences. But when lust takes over, conversations tend to revolve less around connection and more around satisfying desire. When problems arise, instead of addressing them with honesty, people may use physical intimacy as a temporary bandage, hoping it will mask deeper issues. Unfortunately, those unresolved issues continue to fester beneath the surface. One day, the couple wakes up to realize they no longer understand each other. On a deeper level, lust corrodes the very definition of commitment. Commitment is about choosing someone every single day, even when the excitement wanes and imperfections appear. Lust, however, is driven by novelty. It constantly seeks something new, something different, something more. When this mindset infiltrates a relationship, commitment feels like a cage rather than a promise. The grass always seems greener elsewhere, making it difficult to cultivate satisfaction and gratitude where you are. Imagine the emotional toll this takes on your partner. To feel that you are not enough for the one you love is one of the most painful experiences in human life. They may try harder, giving more of themselves in hopes of winning back your attention. But the more they give, the less satisfied you feel. Because the issue was never them. It was lust distorting your perception. This imbalance leads to frustration, tears, and sometimes despair. And when your partner finally gives up, walking away from the relationship, the regret sets in. You realize that in chasing fleeting pleasure, you destroyed something lasting and irreplaceable. Even friendships are not immune. Lust-driven behavior can blur boundaries, creating complications with friends, colleagues, or acquaintances. What could have been a solid, supportive friendship becomes awkward or even toxic when desire crosses the line. Trust is broken and relationships that might have enriched your life are lost. In this way, lust isolates you, not just from romantic partners, but from meaningful human connections in general. The tragic irony is that most people who give in to lust are searching for connection. They want to feel alive, desired, close to another person. But lust offers only an illusion of connection. It satisfies the body while starving the soul. Real intimacy, the kind that brings long-term fulfillment, requires patience, respect, vulnerability, and sacrifice. Lust, by contrast, skips all of that in pursuit of instant gratification. And in doing so, it destroys the very thing it pretends to offer. The destruction of relationships is not always explosive. Sometimes it is slow and quiet, a gradual erosion rather than a sudden collapse. Couples stop laughing together. Friends stop calling. Family members stop relying on you. One day you look around and realize you're surrounded by people but profoundly alone. That is the ultimate betrayal of lust. It promises pleasure but delivers isolation. Yet awareness is the first step. To see how lust undermines relationships is to take the blinders off. With clarity, you can begin to rebuild, choosing honesty over secrecy, connection over indulgence, love over desire. It may not be easy, but it is possible. And the reward, a relationship rooted in trust, respect, and genuine intimacy, is worth far more than any fleeting thrill lust can ever provide. It weakens your mind and emotions in ways that are often underestimated until the damage becomes painfully clear. At first, lust presents itself as harmless fun, a natural desire that seems to provide a little thrill or escape. But what begins as a fleeting indulgence soon evolves into a heavy weight on your inner world. Your thoughts, once sharp and directed toward meaningful pursuits, become scattered. Your emotions, once stable and resilient, swing unpredictably between highs and lows. Over time, the mental and emotional toll of lust is not only exhausting but also crippling, robbing you of peace, clarity, and strength. Lust feeds on the mind. It infiltrates your thoughts throughout the day, interrupting focus and productivity. You might be sitting at work, trying to complete a task, but your brain keeps drifting to fantasies. You may be reading a book or studying, but instead of retaining knowledge, your attention fragments into wandering images and desires. The constant mental interruptions erode your ability to concentrate. What should take an hour stretches into 3, leaving you frustrated and unaccomplished. And this frustration loops back into indulgence as you seek a quick hit of pleasure to ease the dissatisfaction created by distraction. The cycle continues, each round weakening your mental endurance. The emotional consequences are just as damaging. Lust is inherently unstable because it thrives on fleeting moments of pleasure followed by emptiness. You feel excited when desire is sparked, euphoric when it is satisfied, but quickly afterward comes a hollow sense of dissatisfaction. That emptiness often leads to guilt, shame, or even anxiety. You begin to question yourself, why can't I stop? Why am I so weak? Why do I feel worse after chasing something I thought I wanted? These questions gnaw at your emotional foundation, creating a storm of conflicting feelings. Craving on one side, regret on the other. Another way lust weakens your emotions is through dependency. The brain becomes conditioned to rely on these spikes of pleasure to cope with stress, boredom, or loneliness. Instead of processing emotions in a healthy way, through reflection, conversation, or creative outlets, you use lust as a temporary escape. The problem is that escapes never solve the underlying issue. If you feel lonely, indulging in lust only numbs that feeling for a moment, leaving the loneliness intact and sometimes even stronger afterward. Emotional maturity comes from confronting discomfort, not avoiding it. By constantly choosing avoidance through lust, your capacity to handle difficult emotions diminishes. You become more fragile, less able to withstand life's inevitable struggles. Relationships with others also suffer emotionally. When lust dominates your inner world, you struggle to connect authentically with people. Your interactions may feel shallow because your mind is distracted, or because you subconsciously objectify others rather than seeing them as whole individuals. Instead of cultivating empathy, compassion, and genuine concern, lust trains your brain to evaluate people based on how well they feed your desires. This weakens not only your emotional depth, but also your ability to form strong, supportive bonds. One of the most subtle yet devastating effects is the erosion of self-respect. Each time you give in, you know deep down that you allowed desire to overpower reason. That knowledge lingers even if no one else is aware. Self-respect is a cornerstone of emotional health. It is what gives you confidence, resilience, and dignity. Without it, you carry a quiet shame that affects how you walk, how you speak, and how you view yourself in the mirror. This self-disappointment can spiral into anxiety or depression, further weakening your emotional stability. Moreover, lust distorts your perception of reality. When your mind is constantly bombarded by exaggerated images of desire, whether from media, fantasies, or past indulgences, you begin to expect those same extremes in real life. Normal experiences of connection and intimacy may feel underwhelming in comparison. As a result, genuine moments of joy, comfort, or affection no longer register as meaningful. Your emotional palate becomes desensitized, craving only the intense stimulation that lust provides. This desensitization robs you of gratitude, making everyday life feel dull and joyless. The mental cost is equally severe when it comes to memory and creativity. A distracted mind struggles to retain information. You may notice that conversations slip from memory, tasks are forgotten, or goals are abandoned. Creativity, which thrives on focus and mental clarity, withers under the constant noise of lustful thoughts. What could have been innovative ideas or breakthroughs in your work becomes lost in a fog of distraction. The weakening of creativity not only stunts personal growth, but also diminishes the sense of fulfillment that comes from producing something meaningful. At its extreme, lust can foster mental health issues. Anxiety grows from the fear of being discovered or judged. Depression sets in from the emptiness of repeated indulgence. And obsessive behaviors emerge when the mind becomes trapped in an endless loop of craving and regret. These conditions may not manifest overnight, but the longer lust holds sway, the more fragile your mental and emotional health becomes. Left unchecked, it can feel as if your mind is no longer your own, a frightening reality for anyone who once felt in control. Yet what makes this weakening effect particularly dangerous is how normalized it has become. Society often frames lust as liberating or harmless. It is marketed as entertainment, celebrated as freedom, and dismissed as just human nature. While desire itself is indeed human, being enslaved to it is not freedom, it is captivity. The normalization of indulgence makes it harder to recognize just how much it drains your mental and emotional reserves. It convinces you that the fog in your mind, the guilt in your heart, and the restlessness in your emotions are all just part of life, when in reality, they are symptoms of imbalance. But awareness is powerful. To see clearly how lust weakens your mind and emotions is the first step to reclaiming them. The mind is resilient. It can heal from distraction and regain focus. Emotions, too, can be restored when nurtured with honesty, discipline, and healthy outlets. By recognizing the trap of lust, you open the possibility of breaking free from it. You begin to realize that peace, clarity, and strength are not found in chasing desires but in mastering them. The tragedy is how much mental and emotional vitality is wasted when lust reigns unchecked. The hope is that every wasted moment can serve as a wake-up call, a reminder that you are capable of more. A strong mind and a steady heart are not luxuries. They are the foundation of a meaningful life. Lust seeks to erode that foundation, but with awareness and effort, you can rebuild it stronger than ever. It damages your physical health and intellect in ways that extend far beyond what most people imagine. Lust is often thought of as an emotional or moral struggle, but its effects on the body and brain are just as real, and often more devastating, than its impact on relationships or emotions. To understand how lust erodes your well-being, you have to look closely at what happens to your body and mind when desire is indulged without restraint. Over time, lust doesn't just remain a private battle in the heart. It becomes a full-scale attack on your energy, your vitality, and your mental sharpness. One of the clearest signs is the way lust drains physical energy. The body operates on a delicate balance of hormones, and excessive indulgence disrupts this balance. For example, dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, spikes unnaturally during moments of lustful indulgence. While the initial rush feels intoxicating, the aftermath is often marked by fatigue, lethargy, or even brain fog. The constant cycle of overstimulation and depletion places enormous strain on your nervous system. Instead of waking up energized and ready for the day, you may find yourself groggy, unmotivated, and struggling to function. The vitality that should be fueling your ambitions is siphoned off into fleeting moments of desire. The effects on sleep are another critical factor. Many people indulge in lust late at night, whether through fantasies, digital content, or other means. This habit disrupts natural sleep patterns, leading to insomnia or poor quality rest. Without deep restorative sleep, the body cannot repair itself properly, and the brain cannot consolidate memories or sharpen focus. Over time, sleep deprivation compounds into chronic exhaustion, lowering immunity, impairing metabolism, and increasing the risk of long-term health issues such as heart disease or diabetes. What begins as just a late-night habit can quietly sabotage the entire system that keeps your body healthy. Hormonal imbalances play a massive role as well. For men, excessive indulgence can lower testosterone levels, leading to reduced strength, decreased motivation, and even mood disorders. For women, lust-driven behaviors may disrupt cycles of estrogen and progesterone, affecting emotional stability, skin health, and reproductive health. These imbalances weaken the body's resilience and make it harder to pursue fitness, maintain energy, or cultivate a sense of balance. In essence, lust hijacks the very chemistry of the body, turning it against itself. Beyond the physical, lust's toll on intellect is profound. The brain, when repeatedly conditioned to seek quick bursts of pleasure, loses its ability to sustain attention on long-term tasks. This is why people who overindulge often struggle with focus, memory retention, and creative problem-solving. Intellectual pursuits, whether reading, writing, learning, or innovating, require deep, sustained attention. But when the brain is rewired by lust to crave constant stimulation, sitting down with a book or a complex problem feels unbearably dull. The result is a dramatic decline in intellectual sharpness, not because the person lacks intelligence, but because their brain has been trained to operate on shallow, short bursts of activity rather than deep concentration. Consider also the cumulative effect on motivation. Physical energy and intellectual drive are intertwined. When lust robs your body of energy, it also robs your mind of ambition. You might find yourself procrastinating more often, struggling to start projects, or abandoning goals halfway through. Instead of harnessing your intellect to create, solve, or lead, you spend hours chasing distractions. This loss of motivation creates a downward spiral. You accomplish less, which lowers your confidence, which in turn drives you back into indulgence as a way to escape feelings of inadequacy. Over time, the spiral deepens, leaving you both physically weakened and mentally dulled. Another overlooked consequence is how lust fosters addictive behavior patterns. The neurological pathways involved in lust are the same ones triggered by substances like alcohol, nicotine, or cocaine. Each indulgence reinforces these pathways, making the craving stronger and the resistance weaker. In this sense, lust functions like a drug, providing a temporary high followed by a crash. But unlike substances that are clearly marked as harmful, lust is often dismissed as natural, making its addictive qualities even more insidious. Addiction, no matter the source, always hijacks intellect by narrowing focus to one obsession while ignoring the broader spectrum of life. Even the body's appearance can suffer. Excessive indulgence often leads to poor posture, dull skin, weight gain, or lack of muscle tone due to low energy and reduced motivation for exercise. While some of these changes are subtle at first, over time they compound, making you look and feel older than you are. The irony is striking. Lust promises vitality, yet it delivers decay. It tempts with the illusion of youth and energy, but its long-term effects accelerate aging and fatigue. The immune system also takes a hit. Chronic stress from indulgence and lack of proper rest weakens the body's defenses, making you more susceptible to illness. Frequent colds, sluggish recovery from injuries, or even chronic conditions can all trace back to a weakened immune system compromised by an imbalanced lifestyle. When your health falters, so does your intellectual output, because the mind cannot perform at its peak when the body is constantly under strain. On a deeper level, lust diminishes intellectual integrity. The mind thrives when it is aligned with higher values and consistent habits. But when lust dominates, it encourages secrecy, distraction, and hypocrisy. You may present yourself as disciplined, ambitious, or principled, but deep down you know your private actions do not align. This internal conflict erodes intellectual honesty, making it harder to stand confidently by your words or ideas. The mind that was designed to create, learn, and lead becomes compromised by guilt and contradiction. Yet the most tragic effect is not just the physical or intellectual decline, but the lost potential. Every ounce of energy wasted on lust could have fueled a workout, a project, a dream. Every hour lost in distraction could have been spent mastering a skill, deepening knowledge, or connecting meaningfully with others. Lust doesn't just harm your body and intellect. It steals time, and with time, it steals potential. You never get those hours back. The books unwritten, the skills unlearned, the goals unachieved. These are the silent casualties of lust's hold on your life. The good news, however, is that the body and mind are remarkably resilient. When you begin to cut off lust's influence, even slowly, the body starts to restore its balance. Energy returns, sleep improves, focus sharpens. The brain, once clouded, begins to clear. The same neuroplasticity that allowed lust to rewire your brain can be harnessed to rebuild discipline, clarity, and creativity. Health can be regained, intellect can be restored, and vitality can return. But only if you make the choice to stop letting lust control your body and mind. It prevents personal growth and life goals, perhaps more effectively than any other destructive force, because lust disguises itself as something harmless, even pleasurable, while quietly draining away the very qualities you need to succeed. Growth requires focus, discipline, perseverance, and a clear sense of direction. Life goals demand long-term commitment, patience, and the ability to sacrifice short-term comfort for future rewards. Lust undermines all of these. By keeping you fixated on immediate gratification, it ensures that your attention never stays long enough on the things that truly matter. In the end, you may find that years have passed, Opportunities have slipped away, and dreams remain unfulfilled, all because lust distracted you from your higher calling. At the heart of personal growth lies the principle of delayed gratification. Every achievement, whether it's building a career, mastering a skill, or maintaining health, requires saying no to distractions and yes to the long, often uncomfortable process of progress. Lust trains you to do the opposite. Each time you give in to temptation, you reinforce the habit of prioritizing the present thrill over the future reward. Over time, this habit spreads into every area of life. You procrastinate on studying because a quick indulgence feels easier. You neglect health because comfort food and entertainment feel better than discipline. You abandon projects because they require persistence, while desire offers instant stimulation. Slowly, the muscle of perseverance atrophies, leaving you unable to chase goals with consistency. Another way lust prevents growth is by hijacking ambition. The mind only has so much energy each day, and when lust consumes large portions of it, little remains for meaningful pursuits. You may tell yourself you want success, wealth, or mastery, but your daily actions reveal otherwise. Hours are wasted on fantasies or distractions instead of being invested in learning or creating. Ambition without execution is nothing more than wishful thinking, and lust ensures execution never happens by constantly offering an easier, more pleasurable alternative. The danger is compounded by how lust dulls vision. To grow, you need a clear picture of what you want your life to become. You need to set goals, imagine possibilities, and pursue them with determination. But lust narrows your vision to the present moment. It makes you obsess over temporary satisfaction instead of long-term fulfillment. Instead of asking, "Where do I want to be in 5 years?" you ask, "How can I feel good right now?" This short-sightedness sabotages your ability to dream big, plan wisely, and follow through. You become a prisoner of the present, trading away your future for moments that fade as quickly as they arrive. On a deeper level, lust disrupts identity formation. Growth isn't just about achieving external goals. It's also about becoming the kind of person who can handle responsibility, lead with integrity, and contribute meaningfully to others. When lust dominates your life, you may find yourself stuck in a loop of shallow desires, never evolving into the person you're meant to be. You remain emotionally immature, easily swayed by impulses, and unable to handle challenges with strength. Years can pass without true growth, leaving you older but not wiser, experienced but not mature. Lust also isolates you from meaningful opportunities. Personal growth often comes from networking, collaboration, and mentorship, connecting with people who challenge and inspire you. But when lust shapes your interactions, you risk reducing relationships to physical attraction or selfish gain. This prevents you from forming the deep, trust-based connections that lead to real growth. Instead of building a network of mentors, colleagues, or friends, you build a cycle of shallow encounters that contribute little to your long-term goals. Financial goals, too, are often derailed. Pursuing lustful habits can lead to reckless spending on entertainment, indulgences, or even maintaining appearances to impress others. Money that could have been invested into education, business, or personal development is wasted on fleeting thrills. Over time, these choices accumulate into missed opportunities for financial independence and stability. The tragedy is that many realize too late that their lack of financial growth wasn't due to lack of opportunity, but due to misplaced priorities. Spiritual growth is not spared either. Many traditions across cultures and religions emphasize discipline over desire, clarity over indulgence, and purpose over distraction. Lust clouds spiritual insight, making it difficult to reflect deeply, meditate, or connect with higher values. Instead of pursuing meaning, you chase sensations. Instead of cultivating inner peace, you live in inner turmoil. This prevents you from growing spiritually, leaving you with a shallow existence that feels hollow despite surface-level pleasures. Perhaps the most painful effect is regret. Growth requires time, and time once lost cannot be regained. Every day spent indulging lust is a day not spent pursuing mastery, building relationships, or achieving goals. Eventually, you look back and see not just wasted hours, but wasted years. You realize that the book you could have written, the skill you could have mastered, the business you could have built, or the family you could have nurtured never materialized. Not because you weren't capable, but because you were distracted. Regret is the bitter fruit of lust, and it is often harvested too late to undo. Yet awareness of this trap offers hope. Recognizing how lust prevents growth can ignite the desire to reclaim your focus and redirect your energy. Growth doesn't require perfection, only persistence. Each time you choose discipline over indulgence, you take a step toward becoming the person you want to be. Each time you resist the lure of instant gratification, you invest in your future self. And with enough consistent choices, you rebuild the habits of perseverance, ambition, and clarity that lust once destroyed. The truth is simple. Growth is incompatible with slavery to desire. You cannot serve both your higher purpose and your lower impulses. One must take priority. If lust controls your choices, your growth will stagnate. But if you control lust, your life can expand in ways you never imagined. The choice is always yours. Build self-discipline. It is the first and most essential weapon in overcoming lust. Without discipline, every good intention collapses the moment temptation appears. With discipline, however, you can channel your desires, redirect your focus, and strengthen your will to the point where lust no longer dictates your actions. Self-discipline is not about repression in the harsh sense, but about learning to control yourself so that your energy is invested in what matters most. When you build self-discipline, you begin to reclaim freedom. Instead of being enslaved by impulse, you learn to master it. The path to self-discipline begins with awareness. You cannot control what you do not recognize. Too often, people fall into cycles of lust without even noticing when or how the temptation starts. It creeps in quietly, through a thought, an image, a memory, and before you know it, your attention is consumed. To break this cycle, you must first sharpen awareness. This means catching yourself in the moment of temptation, pausing and asking, is this action leading me closer to my goals, or is it pulling me away? That single question can interrupt the automatic response and give you the power to choose. Once awareness is established, discipline must be trained like a muscle. And like any muscle, it strengthens only through consistent exercise. Daily habits are the foundation. Waking up at a set time, maintaining routines, and keeping promises to yourself all build the capacity to resist impulses. Each time you do what you said you would do, even when it is uncomfortable, you reinforce discipline. The discipline you practice in small areas of life, such as eating healthily, exercising regularly, or finishing tasks on time, translates into greater control in larger battles, including the struggle against lust. One effective tool for building discipline is physical training. Exercise teaches you to push through discomfort, endure pain, and stay committed to long-term results rather than instant pleasure. These lessons mirror the inner fight against lust. When you force yourself to complete that final set of push-ups or finish a long run, you strengthen not just your body but also your mind. You prove to yourself that you can resist quitting, that you can stay committed. This resilience becomes vital when faced with the urge to give in to desire. Meditation and mindfulness are equally powerful. The practice of sitting still, focusing on the breath, and observing thoughts without attachment trains the mind to remain calm in the face of impulses. Lust thrives on distraction and scattered attention. Mindfulness recenters the mind, making it easier to let go of urges instead of being carried away by them. Even a few minutes of daily meditation can dramatically improve self-control. Another cornerstone of discipline is setting clear boundaries. If you know certain environments, habits, or triggers pull you into lustful behavior, discipline means avoiding them. This may seem restrictive, but in reality it is liberating. By removing unnecessary battles, you conserve energy for more meaningful pursuits. A disciplined person understands that freedom is not the absence of limits, but the mastery of choices. You cannot grow stronger if you continually place yourself in situations where you are certain to fall. Accountability also plays a major role. Discipline becomes easier when you share your goals with others who will hold you to them, whether it's a trusted friend, mentor, or community. Having someone who checks in on you creates external pressure to stay consistent. This accountability can prevent relapse during moments of weakness. It reminds you that your actions don't exist in isolation. They affect not only you, but also the trust and respect others place in you. Importantly, building discipline doesn't mean never failing. It means continuing despite failure. Many people give up after a setback, believing that one mistake erases all progress. But discipline is about persistence, not perfection. Each time you fall, you must rise again, learn from the mistake, and strengthen your resolve. Over time, setbacks become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Discipline also requires vision. You must know what you are fighting for. If your only motivation is to avoid lust, discipline will feel like deprivation. But if your motivation is to build a meaningful life, one filled with health, success, strong relationships, and peace of mind, then discipline becomes a path to freedom. It is easier to say no to temptation when you have a clear and compelling yes to a greater purpose. Finally, self-discipline grows stronger through consistent practice of gratitude. Lust thrives on dissatisfaction, the constant craving for more. Gratitude breaks this cycle by teaching you to appreciate what you already have. When you are grateful for your life, your health, your opportunities, and your relationships, you are less likely to chase empty pleasures. Gratitude strengthens discipline because it shifts your focus from lack to abundance, from craving to contentment. In the end, building self-discipline is the first true step toward liberation from lust. It will not be easy, and it will not happen overnight. But each disciplined choice compounds, shaping you into a stronger, freer, and more focused individual. Discipline gives you the power to align your actions with your goals, rather than your impulses. It transforms the battle against lust from a constant defeat into a steady march toward mastery. And once you master yourself, you become capable of achieving growth, purpose, and fulfillment in every area of life. Replace lust with greater goals. This principle is not about simply resisting desire, but about transforming its energy into something more meaningful, more powerful, and more lasting. Lust thrives in the absence of purpose. When the mind is idle or the heart is empty, desire rushes in to fill the void. But when you set strong goals, ones that demand your attention, energy, and passion, lust begins to lose its grip. You cannot serve two masters at once. If you pour yourself into goals that truly inspire you, there is little room left for destructive cravings. Think of energy as a river. Left unchanneled, it floods the land, damaging everything in its path. But if you build canals and guide the water, it irrigates fields, powers mills, and sustains life. Lust is like that uncontrolled flood, powerful but destructive when left unchecked. Goals are the channels that redirect this energy into something productive. The intensity you once wasted on indulgence can instead be used to create, build, and grow. The first step in replacing lust with greater goals is clarity. You must decide what you want your life to stand for. Do you want to build a career, achieve financial freedom, master an art, or contribute to a cause bigger than yourself? Without clear goals, lust remains the default outlet for your energy. Vague wishes cannot compete with the instant pull of desire. Only when you define specific, meaningful goals, like writing a book, starting a business, learning a language, or developing a talent, do you create an alternative strong enough to occupy your mind. Once you have clarity, the next step is commitment. Goals must not only inspire you, but also demand something from you. If your goals are weak, you will abandon them at the first wave of temptation. But when your goals are compelling, they give you strength to resist. For example, if you dream of becoming a skilled musician, every hour spent practicing brings satisfaction far greater than the fleeting rush of lust. If your goal is to build financial stability, saving and investing become more rewarding than wasting money on indulgences. Commitment transforms goals from distant hopes into present motivations. It is also important to align goals with values. Many fall into the trap of chasing goals that society defines as success, but that hold little personal meaning. In such cases, lust quickly reclaims dominance, because the goals themselves do not deeply resonate. But when your goals match your core values, whether those are creativity, service, family, or freedom, they touch your heart at a deeper level. They remind you of who you want to become, making it easier to turn away from shallow distractions. The process of replacing lust with goals also requires structure. Big goals can feel overwhelming, while lust offers easy relief. To compete, goals must be broken into small, achievable steps. Each step completed provides a sense of progress and pride, reinforcing the motivation to continue. If you dream of writing a book, commit to writing 1 page a day. If you want to improve fitness, commit to daily movement. As these steps accumulate, the satisfaction of progress begins to outweigh the pull of lust. You realize that real joy comes not from indulgence, but from accomplishment. Equally important is passion. Lust thrives because it provides a quick hit of excitement, but that excitement fades fast. Passion, however, sustains. When you immerse yourself in a project, a mission, or a pursuit that lights you up, you feel alive in a way lust can never provide. Imagine working on a creative piece so engaging that you lose track of time. Imagine training for a marathon, building a business, or serving a community where every effort feels meaningful. Passion generates its own energy, one that outshines the shallow thrill of desire. Another critical aspect is transformation of identity. Goals are not only about achieving results, they are about becoming a different kind of person. Lust keeps you stuck in cycles of guilt, shame, and weakness. Goals invite you to step into strength, vision, and purpose. Each time you choose goals over lust, you reinforce a new identity. I am disciplined. I am focused. I am a creator. Over time, this identity becomes stronger than the old one, and lust loses its power because it no longer fits who you believe yourself to be. Community also plays a role in replacing lust with greater goals. Surround yourself with people who are ambitious, disciplined, and passionate. Their energy fuels yours. When you see others working hard, building, and achieving, you are inspired to do the same. In such an environment, lust feels out of place. You don't want to waste time on empty indulgences when those around you are pursuing growth. A community of driven individuals can lift you higher, keeping you aligned with your goals. Finally, the beauty of replacing lust with greater goals is that it doesn't just help you avoid destruction, it propels you into fulfillment. Lust offers a momentary spark but leaves you empty. Goals once achieved leave you with lasting satisfaction, growth, and pride. The book you finish, the business you build, the skill you master, these stay with you for life. They bring joy not just for a moment but for years, and they inspire others along the way. In the end, overcoming lust is less about fighting temptation and more about redirecting desire. You do not conquer fire by smothering it. You conquer it by turning it into light and warmth. Lust is raw energy. Replace it with greater goals, and that energy becomes the driving force that builds your best life. Create a positive environment, because no matter how strong your willpower, the environment you place yourself in will always influence your thoughts, habits, and actions. Lust thrives in toxic environments where temptations are abundant. Discipline is mocked, and people normalize indulgence. On the other hand, when you build an environment that encourages focus, purpose, and growth, you automatically weaken the grip of lust. In fact, research and experience both confirm that environment shapes behavior more than sheer willpower alone. If you want to overcome lust, you must stop relying solely on inner resistance and start designing outer conditions that support the life you want. The first step in creating a positive environment is to identify and remove toxic triggers. These are the sources of temptation that continually pull you toward indulgence. Explicit content, unfiltered internet access, unhealthy relationships, or even certain places and activities that consistently lead to failure. Many people underestimate the power of triggers. They assume they can handle it, only to find themselves slipping back into old patterns. A positive environment begins with honesty, admitting where your weaknesses lie and cutting off access to them. This may mean installing website blockers, deleting certain apps, limiting screen time, or even distancing yourself from people who constantly feed lustful thoughts. Though difficult at first, these steps remove unnecessary battles and make discipline far easier to maintain. The second step is replacement. You cannot simply remove temptation. You must fill the empty space with healthier alternatives. Imagine clearing weeds from a garden but never planting flowers. The weeds will simply return. In the same way, if you eliminate toxic influences without adding positive ones, lust will find a way back in. Replace unhealthy media with inspiring books, podcasts, or videos that uplift your mind. Replace idle scrolling with physical exercise, creative projects, or meaningful conversations. Replace negative social circles with communities that support your values. The goal is to design an environment so rich in growth that there is little room left for destructive habits. Physical space also matters. The environment around you affects your state of mind more than you realize. A cluttered, messy room fuels distraction and laziness, while a clean, organized space encourages clarity and focus. Creating a positive environment can be as simple as designing a workspace that inspires productivity, setting up reminders of your goals, or arranging your home in ways that reflect discipline and purpose. When your surroundings are orderly, your mind follows suit. Another crucial part of a positive environment is social influence. The people you surround yourself with either pull you down or lift you up. If you spend time with individuals who normalize indulgence, laugh at discipline, and live without purpose, you'll find it nearly impossible to resist lust. But if you build relationships with people who value growth, integrity, and ambition, you will naturally rise to their level. Humans adapt to the standards of their community. That is why choosing friends, mentors, and even online communities that align with your vision is one of the most powerful steps you can take. Technology must also be managed wisely. The modern world bombards us with stimulation, images, videos, ads, most of which appeal to base desires. Left unchecked, this digital environment becomes a breeding ground for lust. A positive environment uses technology intentionally. Curate your feeds to include educational, motivational, and inspiring content. Turn off notifications that constantly demand attention. Set time limits on apps that drain your energy. Use technology as a tool for growth rather than a source of distraction. In addition, a positive environment is enriched by routine. Structure eliminates chaos. When you know how your day will unfold, there is less room for temptation to sneak in. A strong morning routine, for instance, sets the tone for discipline. Waking up early, exercising, journaling, or meditating creates momentum that carries through the day. Likewise, an evening routine that prioritizes rest and reflection helps you avoid late-night indulgences, which are often the most dangerous moments. By designing a daily structure that leaves little idle time, you close the door that lust so often enters through: boredom. But perhaps the most overlooked aspect of environment is inner environment, the state of your mind and emotions. Negative self-talk, guilt, and shame create fertile ground for lust because they weaken resolve and fuel escapism. A positive inner environment means cultivating kindness toward yourself, practicing gratitude, and focusing on progress rather than perfection. When your inner dialogue is filled with encouragement rather than condemnation, you feel stronger, more resilient, and less likely to seek comfort in destructive habits. The beauty of creating a positive environment is that it transforms the battle against lust from a constant struggle into a smoother path. Instead of exhausting yourself by fighting temptation head-on, you eliminate many of the triggers before they even appear. Instead of relying solely on discipline, you design conditions that naturally support discipline. Over time, living in such an environment becomes normal, and lust loses its place in your daily life. In the end, your environment either fuels your downfall or supports your rise. If you want to overcome lust, you must not only fight internally, but also build externally. Surround yourself with positivity, clarity, and purpose, and you will find that lust no longer holds the same power. When your environment reflects the life you want to live, your actions follow naturally, and the destructive cycle finally begins to break. So now you know the truth. Lust doesn't just distract you. It slowly destroys your life, your dreams, and your future. But you have the power to break free, take control, choose discipline, and rebuild the life you deserve. If this message opened your eyes, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us on this journey of growth and transformation. Your future starts the moment you decide.